Thank you all for coming. This is our third, I think, school counseling event, and this is by far the largest crowd. I will remind you all need to be 6 feet apart from each other, so if you move your chair, you need to move back because we all need to be 6 feet, even if we're masked as adults. So let's start there so that we all are healthy and continue to stay healthy. So it's so nice to see everybody. Welcome. My name is Susan Hannon. I am one of the school counselors, and I am the K-12 School Counseling Department Chairperson. And with me here tonight are the fabulous other 2 school counselors, Mr. Evan Miller and Miss Amanda Nagy. We are lucky enough to have our principal, Dr. Wilson, scurrying about over there and being our best helper. We have our sophomore, our sophomore advisor, freshman. He teaches all year, so he may have multiple children of yours. Mr. Lawton's in the back, and Christina Lee's up front here helping us with our check-in. So tonight is making most of high school. Some of the stuff you may be familiar with, some of it will be new, but it's always good to have a refresher. We have a lot to cover. Some of it's nuts and bolts, which is why we gave you some handouts to kind of refer to jot things down on. But it is kind of a conversation. You'll see that most of our meetings we're hiding behind the podium, but tonight we want to take the opportunity to make it not as scary and just make it a simple welcome to the high school. So with that being said, how many of you here are 9th grade parents? Hands up. Okay, how many of you here are 10th grade parents? How many have both? All right, congratulations, you win nothing. Except for 2 kids moving forward through the high school, which is great. So thank you everybody for joining us here. Okay, so what are we going to cover tonight? So we're just going to go over an overview of what it is the counselor program offers, some of the resources that are available to you, because we know this is a partnership. This is not you doing it, us doing it, or your child doing it. It's all of us working together. I'll also go over the New York State graduation requirements. We pound these into your head in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, but I promise you all along, as counselors, we are aware of what they are, and we will make sure that your child gets the right credits they need to graduate. We'll talk about some national testing. 10th graders just took a national practice test, a pre-ACT. We'll talk about that. Some of our wonderful extracurricular activities and some self-directed learning. Okay, so here we go. So the first thing is a quote: prepare the child for the road. Prepare them for the road, but not the road for the child. Okay, this means get them ready, okay, and prepare them, but don't make the decisions for them. So we're going to go start off with a nice fun clip. Miss Mickey. See that? Whoa, I'm getting very loud, sorry.
If Paula Ebert had a race, she would help her child.
Deoxyribonucleic acid. You know that.
With everything.
No,
supervision, so he gets more of what he needs, without all the her he doesn't think he needs. With one combined serving of fruits and vegetables, new Capri Sun Super V.
No, we're not an ad for Capri Sun. We just thought that would be a good way to introduce and talk about sort of the different roles and how things are going to be changing a little bit as your students enter their early teen years and through the rest of high school. So the first thing is what happens. Well, some things hopefully will increase. Nope, sorry. Knew it was ahead of time. Okay. So a couple things I wanted to go over. We've been doing some research as we hit these troubling times. Can you lower the mic a little bit, somebody? Please. And some of the things that we're finding is, there's this challenge of mental health for ourselves and for the children and the kids in our district. So some of the things that we found out is that academic rigor and student well-being, they're not mutually exclusive. Research shows that cultivating a sense of well-being and belonging enables students to be engaged in the rigorous learning experience that we want for them. But too many students believe that success is defined solely by grades, test scores, or admission to the rigorous college. But at what cost? So some research that we have gotten from Challenge Success is that after surveying 200,000 middle and high school students, these students are suggesting that 99% are sleep deprived, 77% are stress-related health symptoms, 63% are constantly worried about academics, 62% say workload is a major source of stress, and 47% are disengaged or simply doing school. So what this tells us is that all of us need to work together to help maintain a mentally healthy child. And how do we do that? So Challenge for Success says that there should be playtime, downtime, and family time, along with going to school is also part of this. So playtime, this is unstructured, freely chosen time for the student, something that they personally decide to do with their time. How can you help with this? Help them to avoid overscheduling so that they have time for fun. And encourage them to spend time outdoors. We've heard this a lot over the last year and a half. Get outdoors, stay active, try and keep healthy. Then there's downtime. This is the time besides beyond structured activities and academics, it's time to just relax, reflect, and just be. Research says that downtime throughout the day and enough sleep is the best for their physical and mental health. So how do we help there? During school, they should have a lunch, maybe even a study hall. Right after school, time to reset before they move on to the next part of their day. Music, reading, video games, bus time for athletics, warm-up time for athletics. And sleep, 8 to 10 hours are the recommendation. How many of you think your child's getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night? Okay, very few. I'm not getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Anybody getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep? What'd you say? Depends on the night. Good answer. So not enough sleep can be a serious consequence for learning, for their health, for their safety and emotion regulation. So another instance would be after getting enough sleep is to turn the social media off 30 minutes before bedtime, screen time, shut it all down. And the last one is family time, which I find is most important. I come from a big family. We're 6 kids. I'm the youngest by far, if anybody ever asks you. And this creates a sense of belonging. And it shows that families that stay together, that spend time together, their child feel more supported, they feel safer, they feel loved unconditionally. As well as they have increased self-esteem and better academic outcomes. So what does this mean? How can you help? Spend 20 minutes of family time 5 times a week with your family. Unplug, get the cell phones off the table during meals and during family activities. And commit to simple family traditions and rituals, and make sure your children or child is helping you plan these and organize them so that they feel a part of it. I wanted to start off with that tonight. Wanted to start off with that tonight. Just as high school's not all about academics, it's about the whole person and a balance. And I think you're going to hear that a lot tonight. The keyword being balance. Okay, so what are some of the changing roles? Students, they're making decisions and should be actively involved in these decisions. Hopefully they're going to become more self-advocates as they walk through high school and be able to do things and approach teachers, counselors, coaches without your help. And developing their mental stamina as well. What goes down? Parent initiation, where you can let your child handle that. You know your own childhood. Some are going to be at different parts of growth here, so some kids are ready for these increased roles and decreased roles from the parent, and some are not. So do what you think is fit. Child's not going to be as dependent on you. I know that's probably hard to hear, but they are not going to be as dependent on you as we move forward. But what stays the same is communication. Communication between the parent and the student. Communicate and support between the parent and the student, and the guidance that you've always provided should continue to stay a constant. So what are some resources to help you do all of this? Well, there's a ton of them. We're in a very small district, which means we have a very hands-on approach. There's technology involved and there are people involved. We have Google Classroom. That's where you can see the assignments for your student and have an idea of what's going on between the teacher and the classroom. There's a student portal and there's a parent portal. Make sure you signed on. You just go to the Rhinebeck homepage. There's a link right there to sign up for the parent portal. Very simple. Then you'll know what kind of grades that your students are getting. Naviance, this is more for the juniors and seniors, but this is a college platform where you can do college searches. How many of you have had students in 11th or still have students in 11th and 12th grade? Okay, so a few of you may be familiar with this. For the parents that have students in older grades, if you're not on here, talk to your counselor so that you can be part of this. And as you go through high school, you'll be introduced to that a little bit more. We have informational meetings. We have this, okay, and many other informational meetings. There's a school counselor calendar events in your packet, and also there'll be a link to that at the end. Email blast, Dr. Wilson, weekly email blast. A lot of very good information in there. And then we also send updates from the counselors when we have updates. So I won't press upon you that if you receive something from the school counseling department, it's probably really important. So let's make sure that you read it. We send our weekly to both parents and the students, so we want everybody to have the information that we're sending out. And then there's the rest of the staff. Besides the counselors, there's the high school psychologist, there is a social worker for the district, we have individual meetings, and we have group meetings. So we're lots of hands-on and lots of resources for you as you move through high school. Not you, your students, sorry. I say that all the time. And then what do we do? This is just a list of some of the things that we do. There's an 8th grade transition. Last year we were in 8th grade classes. This year there was orientation at the beginning of the year, and there'll be freshman seminars offered by Dr. Fite throughout the year on various topics. In 10th grade, your students will have a career exploration program towards the end of this year, starting to examine the transition out of high school. 11th grade, same idea, but we will start to involve the college process more, although it's not just for colleges, it's for any type of transition in the future out of high school. And then there's the 12th grade and senior transition. All the things we do to help the students be ready to stand on their 2 feet no matter what their choices are post-high school. We do course selection between February and April. Your student will pick their courses, we'll meet with the student, and we will meet with you if you would like to join that meeting so you're a part of the conversation. And then there's always individual planning meetings that we offer throughout the year. The informational meetings we talked about above, but there's this one tonight. There's a junior college planning meeting in January. We had our senior college night and we had our financial aid night a couple of weeks ago, and there's one that earlier this week in Spanish that we worked with in conjunction with Marana High School. So that's who we are. But here's some of the basics. I'm going to have Mr. Miller come on up and talk about some more of the nuts and bolts of what your students need to do in order to graduate from high school.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hannon. Good evening, everybody. Great to see some faces in person. I'm loving it. Evan Miller, I was a new school counselor last year, so now I get to meet you all in person, which is great. So what we're going to go through now are New York State graduation requirements going forward. So, taking a look up here at the basics, students are required to graduate New York State with 22 1/4 credits. I'll get to that extra quarter. They are required to successfully pass 5 Regents examinations. Regents exams in New York State are statewide standardized examinations in 4 high school subjects. So you must pass these to get the diploma. And lastly, students must earn 40 hours of community service while here at Ryan. So, a lot of numbers, a lot of words coming up here, but we can break it all down. So, these are the current New York State graduation requirements. So as you can see, you're required to enroll in a specific number of credits across multiple subject areas. So to earn a Regents diploma, students must earn 3 credits in mathematics. This is that middle left column. 4 credits in English or ELA, 3 credits in science, 4 credits in social studies, and 1 credit in a world language. Additionally, students are required, at the very bottom, nice and small, to earn a half credit in health, which is 1 health class, and 2 credits in physical education, which would mean enrolling in a physical education class every single year while they're enrolled here at Ryan. Additionally, students are required to take 3.5 focus electives, which we have a wide range of here at Ryan. We'll go into that briefly. And also 1 credit in the arts that could be visual or performing arts. In addition to earning these 22 credits, if we look at right in the middle column, these are Regents exams required to be taken in order to meet the graduation requirements. So, as you can see, students are required to earn, or to pass a Regents exam, 1 in mathematics, 1 in English, 1 in science, 1 in social studies. There's the Checkpoint A exam, which is taken after 1 year of language, not a Regents, but it's required. And then 1 additional, which can be in either the math, science, or social studies. So 5 total, plus the Checkpoint A exam, gets you the Regents diploma. Well then, what's all this further on the right side? There's also an Advanced Regents diploma, which is something you may have heard of. So, to earn an Advanced Regents diploma, students are required to take 2 additional credits in world language, that would mean 3 years of language, as well as additional courses in science and math. In terms of Regents examinations, as you can see between the 2, instead of 1 for the Regents diploma for mathematics, they'll take 3 in math for the Advanced Regents. They'll take 2 Regents exams in science, so that's 1 additional there, and 1 additional Regents exam in social studies. So those, plus the Checkpoint A and B exam, will earn us you the Advanced Regents diploma. Variations do come up. There are many different ways to get here, so that does exist depending on different circumstances students might be in. That's something that we can speak on individually with students to make sure we're all set and we can advise you appropriately based on whatever that looks like. Moving forward, national testing. A bunch of letters, things you've seen a whole bunch about. We have the pre-ACT, the PSAT, ACT, SAT, and AP. So break those all down. In preparation for the SAT and ACT college placement exams, we offer the pre-ACT in 10th grade in October and the PSAT in 11th grade in October as well. So these actually just passed about a week ago. The whole purpose of taking the pre-ACT and the PSAT is a great way to get the students prepared to see how each exam operates and what the best exam might be for them moving forward into their junior year when they take the real deal. So they can see how they do on each exam. Do they score differently, higher on one than another? And then from there, it's a good foundation to decide which they might be more comfortable with taking. So ideally, they'll end up picking one of these exams and focus on this exam moving forward for their for the real thing, which they'll take at least 2 times. That's our recommendation. The ACT and SAT are definitely similar, but very different in a way. The SAT has fewer geometry questions. There's more time per question on the SAT, and there's no calculator math section. On the other hand, the ACT has lots of geometry. It's definitely faster paced and has a more rigorous science section. So by taking both, again, great way to see which one is really beneficial to the student, how do they perform on it, and we can advise that once they get their score back. In terms of timeline, when it comes to the real deal, the SAT or the ACT, most of our students will sit for this exam in spring of their junior year for the first time. Again, at that point, they've received all of their scores from the pre-exams, the PSAT, pre-ACT, and they can then make that decision on what the best thing to do would be. We do have, depending on certain situations, students who might choose to take that exam in the fall of their junior year. That could be students who have a schedule that might be a little crazier. Maybe they're involved in the musical in the spring. They're also involved in athletics. Maybe they're involved with AP classes and they have AP exams in May. So sometimes, again, depending on student situations, they might choose to enroll or choose to sit for the exam in the fall. So this is a conversation we'll have with students and families alike. If there's ever questions about that, of course, we will walk you guys through that going forward. Something to note, there's a phrase that's been floating around that might be confusing. What does this all mean? Called test optional, that I think is a good thing to just touch on. Test optional is something for colleges. So for any of our senior parents in the room, if you have seniors who are applying to schools right now, maybe you've heard that, okay, we're a test optional university. So what does that mean? Well, simply, that means that they are no longer requiring the students to send in SAT or ACT scores as part of their application. Usually also then hear the word holistic. So instead of looking at the SAT or ACT scores, they look at their transcripts and look at everything else, maybe their extracurriculars, the essay, the supplemental pieces, and try to look at the whole student. They did this as a result, of course, of the pandemic. Students had not as much time to prepare, or test centers were closed, so many reasons. So over 95%, I believe, is the number of colleges currently are test optional, at least through 2023 is what most are saying. So our juniors for next year should be able to apply mostly test optional as well, should they choose. Yet another thing that we would be happy to advise going into that process. So moving forward from the ACT, SAT section, we have advanced placement, or the APs. So these are offered through the College Board. We offer a range of AP classes for students to choose to enroll in. From there, if they enroll in an AP course, part of the requirement for the class is to take the AP exam in May at the end of the year. These are offered again in May and are scored out of 5 points. So lastly, moving forward, just a little more information on the pre-ACT as an example of how it's all broken down. So it's broken down into 4 sections. We have English, mathematics, reading, and science. The pre-ACT does not have the writing portion, but on the real thing, there's an optional writing test as well. So we actually go into classes once we have the results of these exams. We let students know the results. We break down what these results mean. And we actually also review an interest inventory, which is a really cool feature that I like seeing with the students. We like seeing with the students. It's really cool because it gives them feedback on potential areas of interest or careers that might fit based on how they performed on the exam. So it opens up that conversation in their sophomore year in 10th grade for that career exploration. What am I thinking about possibly doing next year? Which then eases us nicely into the 11th grade college and career prep class that they'll also take, where we dive a little bit deeper into it as we slowly prepare them for that application process. So that's all I have for national testing. That's everything there. I'm going to bring it on over to Ms. Menke, who's going to go into some extracurriculars.
Okay, before I get started, I just want to check in and see if anybody has any questions about anything that we've covered so far. Yes?
When did the scores come back for the ACT, so we know that time?
Yeah, so pre-ACT scores will come in about mid-December. Okay, so we do, like Mr. Miller said, we'll go into the classes, we review what the score report looks like, break down that info, talk about the interest inventory. So make sure that you ask your students to see that come mid-December because they might not be running home to share those scores with you. But like we tell them, the only people who see those scores are us at the school and home, because they are practice and a way to just give you information to see how you did. Yes?
I'm looking at the credits earned on these courses are. Is it because there's like 3 math, 3 credits in science? Is it because there's half a credit per year?
So the 3 credits, it's just the way New York State broke it down, where English and social studies, they require 4 years for a diploma, but math and science is only 3. So typically that is a full credit class. So a lot of the students are taking bio or science and then either chemistry, or we also offer forensics, environmental science, and then we do have half credit electives in the science area as well. So although New York State only requires, right, that's the minimum requirement for graduation, many of our students go beyond that minimum requirement and take 4.
Theoretically, there could be a year when they're not taking a math.
Correct. So she said theoretically, is there a year that they don't take math? Yes, but again, if they're on a post-high school planning of college, we recommend that they take 4 years. Good question. Anything else? Okay, so I'm super excited to cover these slides because typically I cover the graduation requirements and the testing, which is the part of the presentation. So, yay, I fought to do this slide, the fun stuff, and the information that Ms. Hannon said earlier, where students can create balance, right? And add those things outside of the academic arena that fulfills their high school experience. So community service up top, that is a graduation requirement. So I guess I have a little bit what I used to do. So there's 40 hours that students need to complete in order to graduate. That can be broken up into 20 hours in school, but at least 20 of those hours have to be outside of school for a nonprofit organization. We often get the question, can they do all 40 hours outside of high school, of the school? Yes. Right? It's just we have that requirement that at least 20 of the 40 have to be outside for a nonprofit. So you do have in your packet this beautiful gold sheet here. What we try to do is break down the community service opportunities in the area and in school based on student interest. Because at the end of the day, although the community service is a graduation requirement, we want students to be engaged in service that is meaningful to them, that they're going to get a lot out of. So as you can see, we break it up into different areas: social science, education, STEM, and so on. So this is a great resource if your students are thinking about starting community service, to take a look. Many of the students will use our breaks in December, February, April to get started, and even the summer months when they have more time on their hands. Next, clubs. So this is our updated club list for this year. And as you can see, I think for a small high school, we offer a lot of different opportunities for the students to get involved in terms of clubs and activities. So most of the clubs that you'll see on this list are open enrollment, meaning students can come and go. There's not attendance required. Let's say they're playing a sport in the fall and they can't attend that club right off the bat, but they finish up the second week in November, then they're more than welcome to join once that sport is over and their time opens up. There are some of the clubs, though, like Mock Trial, Model UN, Science Olympiad. Those are more competitive-based clubs and organizations. They may require students to try out for spots, especially Mock Trial being one. And then, like I said, the attendance is required, and it could be they're coming back into school 2 to 3 nights per week, depending on the necessary preparation for that. Ms. Hannon, do you want to plug SAB?
I was just like smiling and sad.
I saw the little thing over her club. So Ms. Hannon is the advisor for students against destructive decisions.
Couldn't help
We've worked together, this is our 19th year together, Ms. Hannon and I, so I'm in tune with her. The clubs are a great way, especially for, for all the students to, do something they enjoy. It's downtime for some students after school. It's a great opportunity for them to meet different students, expand their social circuit, so to speak. It's just, so ninth grade, I would say, is, for the ninth grade parents here, encourage your students. Get out there, explore, hit a lot of the clubs, see what they're all about, and then maybe after this year, really then, right, because we don't want them overscheduled and in 20 clubs and sports and then want to do theater and then they're doing outside things and they have a laundry list, right, of activities, but they're spreading themselves thin. So ninth grade, I think, can be exploratory, go to a lot of different clubs, see what they're about, and then really think about what are those things that I have that strong connection to and really want to spend my time there. Sports. Lots of athletic teams in the fall, winter, spring. Ms. Hannon, are those start dates of this year?
Yes.
Correct?
The winter and the spring is, but the fall, we put mid last year's start date. It hasn't been released yet, but just gives you an idea that if your child is not playing a fall sport this year, that fall sports start in August before school starts. You just don't have the exact date.
Okay. So as you can see, right, NEC has our teams, and then there are some of the teams that are merged with other districts as well. And again, thinking of sports, some of the programs have JV and varsity level. JV typically is 9th and 10th grade, varsity 11, 12, although we do have student athletes that are talented and end up on the varsity team before 11th grade. So a little bit of difference there between JV and varsity, maybe the time commitment. So varsity teams are usually practicing or playing 6 days a week. I know sometimes it comes up where the student, so let's just take fall season, for instance, they're playing field hockey, but they also play on a club team outside of school. And I know the athletic department promotes that students, if they're playing for the school and they're in season, that their school team comes first. So sometimes this does cause, again, those tough decisions that students have to make and families need to discuss to say, is this, can we do this? Can everything be balanced with what my child is doing? Okay, so that's our sports. So I would just say overall with any of the extracurriculars and outside is we just really want to stress that balance piece, right? So what academic classes they're taking, what are they involved in outside of school, are they getting enough sleep, right? Or, because we don't want students who are overscheduled and staying up until 1, 2, and 3 in the morning. That's not what we want. So that course selection time that Mr. Miller talked about is a great opportunity for all of us to reflect on where the student is, what they're involved in, and really creating that schedule and balance for the year to come. Okay, we also have some self-directed learning opportunities. So the Independent Learner Program and Action Research is programs that Dr. Fite runs where students want to pursue something outside of their academic classes, right? So they may be engaging in music, art, doing research. I know the Action Research does a lot of local, community-based things that they take a look at. So I would definitely, if your student is interested in expanding their learning outside of our set curriculum, the Independent Learner Program and Action Research are great ways to do that. And they can reach out, or you can reach out to Dr. Fite to talk to her more about that. Leadership, we are now in the fourth year of peer leadership class, so we actually have a formal leadership class that we offer that Mrs. Milo teaches. So it's a half-credit elective, which means that meets every other day. So that's a great opportunity. It's for grades 10 through 12. So we want students freshman year, acclimate, transition to high school, get a feel for how things work, and then that course would open up to potentially take. And then really leadership through their activities. So whether that's athletic, theater, clubs, freshman orientation, we have evening events that we host here that a lot of the students will volunteer at. So there's leadership opportunities that way. And then competitions and Olympiads, like I said, that's more under the mock trial, Model UN, Science Olympiad. So many different opportunities through academics, clubs, athletics, and all of those extracurriculars to really build those self-directed learning and leadership. Are we good? Any questions? Yes. Wait, I'm going to come back to you.
Get me the steps.
I am. This is good.
My question is, how many hours a week on average do you expect the students to be
To be doing homework. So how many hours per week? Right, or per night, let's say. So I think that depends on, I would say, the classes that they're taking. So most students are taking 5 core classes, right? And then within that, some may be taking, so 9th graders may be taking honors classes, which do require sometimes additional work and homework. And then in 10th grade, if they're in an AP class, those typically require more outside work. So I would say on average, 2 hours, 2.5. So 2.5. There may be nights where, like I said, it could be more. If they have tests or quizzes, but certainly if you feel that there's more and you see your students staying up, let us know. That's an opportunity for you to reach out to us, their counselors, to let them know, hey, they're spending 3, 4+ hours on homework because maybe there's some other things going on or there's just too much. So either way, we would want to know that as the counselor so we can address it. Any other questions? Oh, you're up, Miss Hannah.
Might have to be quiet.
Fingers crossed.
My job is to make college easier because students have a lot on plates. Like Harper, an econ major who piles on the tray.
Imagine you're on a roller coaster. You know, you sit down in the seat, first thing that happens, there's some guy who walks around and sort of pushes down that lap safety, secures the lap safety. Now, if you're like me, what's the very first thing you do? Grab that bar, you push it, you prod it, you wiggle it, you test it. Now, think about it. I mean, do you push and prod and test and wiggle that bar, hoping that it will give, hoping that it will fail, leading to your inevitable death as you splash on the pavement? Of course, you push it and you prod it and you test it, hoping and firming it will hold. Listen, that too your life is doing the exact same thing. They are pushing you and prodding you and testing you, hoping, confirming you will hold. I mean, at a time in their life when so many things are uncertain, they need to know that you are certain. At a time in their life when so many things are unstable, they need to know that you are stable. And at a time in their life when so many things are erratic, they need to know that you are consistent. So good news. If the teen in your life pushes you, doesn't mean you're a bad person or an imbecile or doing it all wrong or messing things up or saying the wrong things. It simply means you're dealing with a teenager.
Okay, so were you able to hear that?
Hey there, I'm teen behavior expert Josh Schiff.
I'll throw it
Let's
away.
talk about how to have a civil/meaningful conversation with your teen about challenging topics. Now, when you...
Okay. I don't sound like that, do I? So basically, the overview of that is he was using a roller coaster handle and they push it down, bring down the roller coaster. Nobody just says, okay, thank you for doing that, sir. You're like, oh my God, am I going to die and I'm staying here? And that's the students. They're going to push and pry, but they know and can trust that that handle is going to hold them in place, and that's you. That's us. That's our team. That is parents, counselors, and the students. So, Ms. Mankey's asked a couple of times. If you have any additional questions, great. Should have won this.
Hi, are there parent-teacher conferences in high school?
There are not parent-teacher conferences because the teachers are all on different schedules. In the high school, the middle school, there are teams, but you can request a meeting with a counselor, yourself and the student, or a couple of teachers. We can try to get a couple of teachers involved at the same time. And if you really wanted a full team, we could do that and just not all happen in one meeting. Good question. Thank you. I'll stay in the middle. That will help. Although I need more stuff. So go ahead.
Since 40 hours are required for community service, is there a certain way of logging in the hours somewhere?
Good, another good question. The way the community service hours work, I'm not over here. Everybody's on their spinny chairs. The way the community service, how you record them, if it's an outside community service event, you need the person in charge of that event to write down what your student's name, what they did, when they did it, and for how long they did it for. Because that's the outside hours. It's a letterhead thing, or they can send an email from the organization. In school, we do have a form, and we have old school record keeper, Mrs. Kane, who is in our office, who keeps track of all of the community service in a binder and on a spreadsheet. So as your students bring in the hours, she logs the hours in for them so that we have it all on track in our school. Okay.
That's my good follow-up.
Good follow-up question. All right.
Do you have to do all 40 hours? Can you do them all for a nonprofit?
They all have to be for a nonprofit.
Oh, okay.
Those of you who work in an office that is, a hedge fund, we need someone to make copies. That is not a not-for-profit. That's just, thank you, son. You are great working for me for free. Okay. Yeah, all not-for-profit. Yes.
Does the topic for independent learner projects or programs change every year, and how do the kids become aware or have the opportunity to get involved in ILP?
ILP is Dr. Fite's baby, and there are no set topics. Students will work with Dr. Fite to come up with an independent learner program based on their interests. So whatever your students' interests are, they work together to figure out what direction that's going to go in with mostly student input.
Is that run as an after school?
No, yes, it's a course for credit, a half credit. But the time spent can be scheduled during the day if the student has a study hall or is willing and hopefully not giving up their lunch period, or they'll, Dr. Fite will schedule time after school. So it can go either way depending on the student's schedule. Sure. Hi.
Hi there. When is the deadline for when they turn in the college applications?
College applications. College application due dates are in the fall, and they are generally due. There are early applications. Some of those are due as early as October 15th. Most of them are due on November 1st. Some a little later, November 15th. Some a little later, December 1st. The regular deadline for colleges is January 1st. And then there's finally a last one when there's rolling admissions that colleges will take an application, and within 6 to 8 weeks after they start meeting applications, we'll let you know the decision. So it all depends. It's one of our favorite words in the counseling office. It all depends on what colleges your kids are applying to at that time. But it's the general start October 15th, the earliest, senior year, by the November. Yes? Good questions.
I saw you have asked for a class available. Is it too late for a 10th grader to initiate a club?
Which club? Clubs are run through the student senate.
There's a proposal form that has been linked to a previous weekly. I can add it again, where they can see Mrs. Calpagny in the main office to pick up a proposal form. So it has a series of questions like the rationale for the club, and then they have to find a potential faculty advisor and obtain a list of students, their peers, who are also interested in this organization. So then when we get this proposal, I review it, and so you can tell we have quite an expansive list of club offerings this year. Some of them are new, based on student interest, and we have a few proposals waiting that have been approved, but we have to kind of see, does interest kind of wane in one area, in one club, and then that presents an opportunity for another club. So some of the new clubs this year, based on repeated requests from students, include things like speech and debates, dance requests. And then we have one in the wings waiting that's a little bit more service oriented. We find that sometimes students will propose a club, and then there's a group of students who follow that club all 4 years, and when the students graduate, the club interest kind of disappears. So like fishing clubs disappeared this year because a lot of the students graduated like last year, and then that presented opportunities to offer new ones. So we have a few proposals waiting, but we always welcome more. It just depends on what the students' interests are that we really try to cater to.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Go.
Regarding graduation college applications, if there's a junior who has all needed credits, are they allowed to do secondings?
What kind of things?
Apply for college and look for all those opportunities?
If the graduation date is still going to be the end of their senior year, the applications will still be done in the senior year. So even if you met all of the graduation requirements that we talked about, you would then probably continue to take additional courses, which would continue to strengthen your transcript and go from there. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. It was a beautiful day, beautiful night. It's so great to see so many of you in person. If you would like to schedule any of those meetings, just reach out to one of us, one of your counselors. We'd be happy to meet with you and know that your children are in good hands. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.